few years ago, I began a new spiritual journey. I was raised a Christian, but tired of my confusion and denying my gifts, I decided to take a new path of discovery and internal growth. Along the way, one thing I realized was how many others are in a similar place in their lives, knowing there's more, but stuck in their own conditioning or doubt. So I decided to start this podcast as a way of vocalizing the things I was learning. But then it became something more. I decided to blend my own quest for self-discovery with a deep dive into the fascinating world of Cajun culture. We'll unravel the unexpected connections between these two paths and how they play a unique role in guiding us towards healing and growth, hopefully while offering insights and inspiration. I'm Heather, and this is Soulful Wanderings with the Pretend Cajun. Are you coming along for the ride? Hi everyone, welcome back. And I just want you to know that I'm starting out this episode by asking you a few questions, but there's a reason why I'm asking, and you'll understand in just a second. But have you ever suddenly felt yourself getting angry, but you didn't know why? Or maybe you all of a sudden got anxious or even happy, but before you weren't feeling that way. Or maybe you've all of a sudden felt really nauseous or suddenly had a headache. And here's my other question. When that happened, were you around other people? And if so, have you ever considered that you might be an empath? Do you know what an empath is? I guess would be the next question. But this is something I really want to talk about because it's actually been coming up a lot for me lately for, I guess, various reasons. You know, I've been learning about my own abilities for the past few years now, but recently I've realized that I have a couple people in my life that are very sensitive. They are what I would say is very empathic. I mean, they seem to feel everything. And I have other people in my life that aren't really into the spiritual path that I believe they may be empaths, and it's causing them things like anxiety and depression and things that they're struggling to deal with. But I also feel like that this maybe is just another word that, I'm going to describe folks as mainstream folks. That they may hear that word and go, oh, that's just another spiritual thing. But I wonder all the time, how many people are empaths of some kind? Those people that we know that they change their emotions on a dime, you know who I'm talking about. Are they feeling someone else's emotion and taking it on, maybe without even realizing what's happening? I've even started wondering if this has an effect on mental health issues. Like I was saying before, the anxiety, the depression. I mean, if you can't control your emotions, or at least you think you can't control your emotions, you have no idea why, you have no idea where this stuff is coming from, you might end up getting labeled, let's say. And what about people that struggle socially? You know, maybe they're socially awkward. What if it's because they don't understand that emotional influx that they feel when they're out around people? And I mean, I could go even further with this about people that hear voices or they see people that aren't there. You know, what if they're seeing spirits? What if it's simply psychic abilities that are waking up? You know, they're going through a spiritual awakening, and all of a sudden this happens and they don't know what's going on, and well, I guess they freak out. Now that's really another episode that we'll talk about that stuff later, because I really do feel strongly about this and I would love to dive into it. But for now, let's get into this. What exactly is an empath, and how can you determine if you possess these very unique and lovely abilities? I feel like we should start with defining what empathy is. And most people have empathy for others, because empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. I think we've all done that. someone's going through a rough time in particular, you often have empathy for them. You feel bad for them that they're going through that situation. But for empaths, it's going to go beyond just that sympathy. An empath can deeply connect with others, and it's on an emotional level most of the time. They're often going to experience the emotions of the people that are around them, and it feels a lot like it's your own emotion. They're attuned to other people's feelings and emotions. But what makes someone an empath? Well, empaths are individuals with heightened emotional sensitivity. They tend to possess what we'll call an innate ability to sense and maybe even absorb the emotions of others that are around them. And of course, this sensitivity can often lead to you really start to feel overwhelmed. And especially when you're in crowds or really emotionally charged environments, that can get overwhelming really quickly for an empath, or I know it can for me. So, what are some common signs of an empath? Well, first, they're probably going to be highly sensitive, and that can be to external stimuli like noise or light, and it's also emotions. So, you'll often find an empath that they're going to, like we said before, if they're in a crowd or noisy places with a lot going on, they may start to feel overwhelmed because you're kind of bringing all that noise and all those lights and then all those emotions, and it's just too much. I know I'm like that. I've actually gone into full on panic attacks in crowds sometimes because it's just more than I can process at one time, and especially before I knew what was going on with me and what all this meant. I really didn't know how to process it then. And you know what? It makes me think of autistic people. Not all autistic people, but anybody else. They tend to be really easily overstimulated by lights and noises and things like that. And again, not all of them, and that's not all the issues often that an autistic person has. It just made me think of that. Just a thought. Empaths also may have intuitive insights. Basically, it's a strong gut feeling, and it can be about people or a situation. They can sense usually when something's wrong or when somebody's upset. And I'm going to tell you, if you have that, trust those feelings, because if you're tuning in to someone else, it may actually help you pick up little cues from them or information that helps you communicate with that person better, or even help you make better decisions about how to handle the situation. Example, what if you're wanting to work with a person and you just get that gut feeling about them? There's an intuitive insight that you have that maybe makes you pause, or maybe says, you know what, I am going to move forward because the intuitive hit that you got was good. They're not always bad, by the way. And the truth is, I feel like that could really help you in kind of a multitude of decisions if you're following your gut. So that gut instinct, it's important. So pay attention to it. Empaths will often mirror emotions. They tend to kind of unconsciously mirror the emotion of people around them. Let's say someone's sad, they may feel sad too. Even if they were in a good mood right before. This is what I was saying earlier, anger, joy, depression, anxiety, really any emotion can be mirrored like that. Empaths may also have a strong connection with nature. Some say that many empaths have a deep connection with nature and animals, and that natural settings are where they can really relax and regroup and, really feel rejuvenated. I wasn't sure if I had heard about this before when I was doing the research. I probably had, and maybe I just wasn't putting it together with what I'd heard before. But it really does make sense, especially when you think about how helpful it is to ground for an empath, because that is so much about nature and reconnecting with the earth and whatnot. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But it really does make sense. And then there are many that will have compassion and a desire to help others. So they may be drawn to helping professions. That would be things like counseling, nursing, maybe social work. And this most likely comes from their desire to really help others who are suffering. They just want to help people. They want to make them feel safe and to feel happy. And there can be good and bad in having empathic abilities. I know when I was growing up, all my life, I was always called tender-hearted because, I was one of those people that I would cry really easily and things like that. And I know there's some people that'll say, well, that's just the Pisces in you. But I think it's also the empath that's in me, because you just feel things so strongly. And especially when you don't understand what it is, it can be really hard to control, and it can just make things difficult. And it can also make it hard to set your boundaries, to protect yourself with other people. And we're going to get to that a little bit in a second, too. And I know you know these people in your life. I know you do. The person that can always seem to know what you're thinking and maybe what someone's going to do, how they're going to act about something. And maybe you've never thought about it this way before, but, most likely those folks probably have this gift. Now, of course, if you want to, I've actually run across some quizzes online that, if you want to take one and see if you're an empath, feel free. I would look for ones, see if they're reputable before you use them. And I mean, if you find that helpful, you could try one out. But I really think if you have some of these qualities that we just talked about, it's very possible that you have empathic abilities. I would also recommend that maybe you talk with someone who works with this kind of thing, works with energy and such. Maybe a coach, a spiritual coach. I'm someone you could reach out to. I can get you started. And then if you need more, of course, there's people I can point you to that can help you more if you need it. So really don't be afraid to reach out if you feel like you need to. So now that we've talked about some signs of empathic abilities, let's talk about the types of empaths. Did you know that there's different forms? I actually didn't really know that, but it's really not a one-size-fits-all concept. So let's talk about some of the different types. You may fit into one or more of these types. The first one would be a cognitive or intuitive empath. This involves understanding someone's perspective and emotions, but kind of intellectually. It's about, you just get it. You get how someone feels without necessarily having to feel it yourself. These types tend to go with that gut feeling a lot. That's where that really fits nicely. There's also what's called a physical empath, and this is when you pick up on medical symptoms of others. That could be things like a stomach ache, a headache, or even feeling hot or cold. This one to me it's difficult, because when you don't feel good and you have to start to separate, is this mine or is it someone else's? So to me, that one's a little harder to deal with. I don't have this one as often, but it can definitely not be fun when it happens. Another one is a plant empath, and it's kind of like it sounds. These people tend to have a connection to things that grow, basically. You have empathy for plants, flora, fauna. And these people know that plants have feelings. Plants can be affected by emotions and things like that. So it's actually very interesting. There's also an animal empath. It's very similar to plants, but it's with animals. A lot of these guys are animal rights supporters. Animals tend to gravitate towards them as well. They tend to feel safe with animal empaths. And they may pick up on the emotions of the animals. And it's actually pretty similar to the way it would be with a human. Animals just tend to communicate a little differently. But, they have emotions just like we do. They just can't verbalize them like we can. There's also an earth empath. Of course, they're going to be sensitive to the changes in the earth itself. They may pick up on vibrations from things like earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, really anything that would affect the earth. And of course, as you would imagine, these guys are really in tune with nature, and they are definitely people that really recharge and rejuvenate when they're in nature. So that one is really a lot of fun. And the last one, I'm going to be honest with you, I had never heard of before. It's very interesting. I hope I say this right. Aoka empath, and it's actually very rare. It comes from the Lakota or Dakota Native American dialects, and the research said that it means sacred clown or spiritual fool. So these types of empaths are basically like a spiritual mirror, so they can show that person what they aren't seeing. And what's neat about it is they tend to see right through people that are being dishonest about something and, reflect that back to them, where the person kind of can't do anything but do the right thing, and kind of admit what they're doing. So it's very interesting. I don't know that I've ever met anyone that is that type of empath, but I think it's pretty fascinating, and I hope I do one day. Like I said before, you can be more than one kind of empath, so don't think you have to fit into just one little category. Everyone's different, and their abilities are going to be different. I think becoming aware of your empathic abilities is really just the beginning. This journey, it's going to involve a lot of self-discovery and learning how to manage that heightened sensitivity, because let's be honest, like we said before, it can be really overwhelming, especially if you're not aware of what an empath is, and that's what you're experiencing. It can be quite jarring. Okay, I don't want you guys to think that it's all bad, because it's not. There are good things about it. It can be helpful. Let's say you're talking with someone, or you have someone in your life that you know how they're feeling, or you're able to understand what they're dealing with because of this ability. That could put you in a position to really help you, because that insight that you have helps you really know what they need and what kind of help they're going to need. So that can really be an awesome way to use this gift. It can also help you know if somebody's being dishonest or lying to you. But then on the positive side of that, it can help you know a little bit more about the person you're communicating with. I think we said that before briefly. But if it gave you some insight into them, maybe you could then sort of adjust the way you talk to them, or something that you say to them, and that may make the interaction with them more pleasant. But yes, I'm going to go back to it. It can also be a little bit difficult. One thing that's really difficult for me is you tend to carry all of those emotions, all those other people that you've come into contact with. You're now carrying all of those emotions with you, and you're going to have to work to shed them and to get rid of them, out of your body, because a lot of that energy that you're absorbing, it may very well be negative. And a lot of this can make it really difficult for empaths to set boundaries, but it's really crucial for all of us to practice self-care, to practice grounding techniques, and doing that boundary setting so that we can protect ourselves and protect our emotional well-being. And like we said before, it can easily overwhelm you, especially in crowds where there's just so many emotions coming at you at once, and you're trying to deal with all those emotions all at one time. I know I said this before, that I struggle with that a lot, because it's just so much for me to process, and sometimes I just struggle with that, and it can be quite draining and quite taxing. I've also found that there are people that may be a little bit leery of you, of me, because they didn't really like the fact that I could read them so easily, that I sort of quote unquote knew things. So, there's that too. Just something to keep in mind. So, now that you've heard all of this, are you thinking you might be an empath? And if you are, what are some things you can do to sort of nurture and harness those abilities? A great start is self awareness and recognizing and accepting your empathic nature. You want to really understand that this is a gift, it's not a burden. These are gifts that can not only help you in your personal journey, but it may help you help others. And of course, when you understand it, then you'll know how to control it or what to do when you start picking up on all those energies. Because, like we said, it can be quite jarring if you don't really know what it is or what to do with it. Another great practice is meditation and mindfulness. These practices can really help an empath stay centered and manage all these overwhelming emotions. So, for example, mindfulness. If you're in the moment, then you start to recognize these emotions. You start to recognize, hey, I got angry really quickly. Let me take a step back and look at that. And then you start to ask yourself, is this my emotion or is this someone else's? And if it's not yours, then you can start to learn how to get rid of that energy, to shed that energy, or just how to handle it in that moment. And of course, the meditation is such a great way to learn how to stay centered and help you calm yourself when you need to. Like I said, you're overwhelmed and you need to kind of get your breathing under control and get yourself where you can think straight. Those meditation practices are really, really going to help you with that. I've done that before where I really have to understand how to calm myself down, get my breathing where it needs to be, and then I can recognize where the emotion is coming from and what I'm going to do with it. So that's actually been really vital for me, really, really helpful. Energy protection is vital too. You want to learn to shield yourself from negative energy. I do this through meditation as well. I ground myself. If you've never done grounding, for me, I push all the negative energy out of my body back into the ground, back into the earth. And then I draw up positive energy through my body. And then you can use that energy to visualize essentially a protective bubble that goes around you. Now, of course, when we talk about grounding, if you've never done this, I realize that may sound odd and you may be thinking, okay, I don't know what to do. But look, you can reach out to us on the Pretend Cajun pages on Instagram or Facebook, and we can get you some steps to follow. Or, there's several guided meditations on YouTube. Those are great resources that might help get you started. And of course, remember, if you've never meditated before, it may take a few tries to find a style that you like that really works for you. So, be patient with yourself. Give yourself some grace. We talked about boundaries a lot. You want to set boundaries. You want to establish healthy boundaries. It's okay to say no. And it's okay to prioritize your own well-being. It's okay. It's important. If something isn't working for you or it's making you anxious or causing all these emotions to come up, say no. It's a full sentence. No. Period. Another great thing that will help you is to connect with others. Look for support. Look for like-minded people. Maybe join an empath support group. It's always great to share experiences. It can be really therapeutic, and it's a great way to learn and to grow and to help each other. So again, I just wanted to talk about this because I know a lot of people who are sort of newly discovering their abilities. They're having that awakening. And I also know some that have really had it for a while, but they really didn't know how to deal with it. So I just really wanted to talk about it and hopefully put some information out there that could help you guys figure out what to do with all of this. I actually learned quite a few things doing the research myself. And I'm going to say it again. I think this contributes to mental health issues for many people. I mean, when you have odd things happening in your head that you can't control and you can't explain, that can really affect your daily life. I mean, think about it. And I believe that there are some people that have been misdiagnosed because they don't understand, and neither do the people that are treating them. And hear me, don't come for me. I'm not saying all people, I'm not saying all diagnoses have to do with some kind of spiritual ability or something like that. I'm just wondering how much it really is all connected. Maybe a little bit of this and a little bit of something else. Or maybe it's all this. Or maybe it's all something else. But I just wonder how many times knowing about these abilities and knowing how to deal with them, how to work with them could help people. It's just something that I really think about a lot. And there are a lot of other things that can affect your emotions too. I'm not going to get into it because it's a lot, and just stick with this. We're going to talk about all those more in later episodes. But I guess what I'm trying to say is it just may not be as cut and dry as we think sometimes. But you know what? This is why I do this. This is why I work with other people who do this and who teach how to work with these gifts. It's important. And look, we're adults. So it's a little easier sometimes to discern and to make decisions and to find help and things like that. But can you imagine kids who have abilities that they don't understand? And they certainly, if we can't explain it, can you imagine a child trying to explain it to an adult? And especially if that adult isn't listening because they don't really believe it, or maybe they're denying their own gifts. But it's important. I think it's important to know. And it's an important thing to be explored and to be open-minded about so that we can learn and try to help each other and help ourselves. Remember, being an empath is a beautiful gift. But like many things, it comes with its challenges, of course. But with some self-awareness, paying attention to your self-care, and, of course, implementing the right techniques, you can harness your empathic abilities. And you may even have the opportunity to make a positive impact on the world with your gifts. How amazing would that be, huh? So that's it for now. We'll see you guys next time. And until then, stay connected and stay curious. Thanks so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure and like and rate and follow and do all the things for our podcast. It really does help us out. Links and any other important things you need to know will be in the show notes, so make sure to check those out. If you have ideas of topics you'd like to hear about or questions you want us to answer, drop those on the Pretend Cajun page on Facebook or Instagram. And if you're interested in theta healing or maybe a reading, head over to the website, which is pretendcajun.com, to schedule a time. In the meantime, take care of yourself and each other. Until next time.